We live in an age where awareness about environmental issues, about sustainability, is at an all-time high, especially in the developed world. So if you go to North America, if you're in Europe, a lot of people know about issues like climate change, they know about environmental degradation, they know about biodiversity loss. So the communications that we're producing, whether it's video or whether it's photo, or whether it's infographics, online, offline, all the communications that we are producing, they're reaching large audiences now. A lot of people know about these things, but the question is what effect they're having. And that's the challenge for us as communicators, to go from awareness to action. And really the only way that you can do that is to make your communications very engaging, very inspiring, so that people they feel inspired by your messaging, they feel inspired by your communications to get involved, to do something. And I think this is the big difference between the sort of communications that we're producing now and maybe 10 years ago. So we ask them to do something. So whether that something is to change their attitudes or behavior, whether it's to do something in their own lives, something very simple like to cut down on water use or to save electricity, or whether it's asking them to give money. That's of course, another important communication for NGOs especially. Or whether it's asking them to sign an e-petition or a campaign or to send an SMS to their member of parliament, whatever it happens to be, more and more communication now is about asking people to do something. And there's a lot of hope pinned on the green economy contributing towards a more sustainable world. Of course, a green economy by itself is not going to save the planet. It needs to go hand in hand with a shift in attitudes and behavior, the way we treat our biodiversity, the way we treat the developing world, and so on. And green marketing is part of that, but of course marketing alone is never going to solve the world's problems. So there has to be a real commitment by governments, there has to be a real commitment by companies, by big business, to not only market themselves as green, but to act as green. And that's what we're seeing a lot of now, is that a lot of major companies are getting much more serious about sustainability and about their corporate and social responsibility agendas. They're not just talking about it, but they're actually doing it. I mean, of course, there's an awful lot of greenwashing around, and we have to be aware that a lot of big corporations, especially those working in unsustainable areas of the economy, mineral extraction, oil companies and so on, are doing a lot of greenwashing, and that's something that we need to be aware of. And I think it's interesting that the audiences, the public who are on the receiving end of these messages, are becoming much more sensitive to greenwashing. They're much more easily able to spot when a corporation is being genuine and when it's not. So marketing alone, of course, is not going to save the world, but it's a very important part of it. I worked for 7 years at Greenpeace and 4 years at WWF, and although they're both working in the same field and both working towards the same goals, their approach and their communications approach especially is very different. Greenpeace is a very news-based organisation, so they put a lot of resources, a lot of people, a lot of money into filming their actions on their ships or on land, and getting those actions edited and out to the news agencies, to the broadcasters as quickly as possible. They act a bit like a green news agency for their own material. They also, of course, adopt a much more, you might call it a much more shocking way of communicating. So they're not afraid to make videos which shock people. They're not afraid to make videos which, in some cases, are very annoying to the corporations that they're attacking. WWF, on the other hand, takes a very different view. WWF believes that in order to achieve major change, major positive change, they work with big corporations. So WWF has corporate partnerships with some very big names like Coca-Cola, like HSBC, HP, these kind of big multinational companies, because WWF believes that that's the only way that you're really going to shift towards a green economy, by shifting these big companies. So WWF's communications are much more about persuading and being collaborative rather than being confrontational. So you'll see a lot of the work that WWF does in the communications field is in partnership with some of these big corporations. So although the end goal is the same, very often what happens is that Greenpeace will come along and have a big attack on a particular company or a particular government, say, and really go all out to name and shame them. Then WWF will come along afterwards and say to that same company or that same government, okay, we can help you to improve, let's talk about it. So it's a kind of bad cop, good cop routine, and it actually works very well. There are a number of examples where Greenpeace and WWF have worked with the same company but in very different ways, or have communicated about the same company but in very different ways, with a positive result at the end of it. So Green TV is a video production and distribution and syndication company based in the UK. We aggregate films from many different sources, so from NGOs, from UN agencies, from governments, and from corporates as well. And we have a website with a number of TV channels on it, online TV channels, and then we syndicate that content to a number of partners like iTunes, Blinks, Dailymotion. We have relationships with some major newspapers, and so all this video content that we aggregate into our own site, and then we distribute it to other partners. And we work with some fairly major partners, so Greenpeace and WWF, of course, are two of our major clients, but we also have corporate clients like Sony, like Alstom, the big engineering company, like Vestas, the wind turbine company. So we have a whole range of clients who commission us to make video content for them and then to distribute it to these various platforms, because a lot of people don't understand that making the video, actually creating it, is only one part of the story, and in many cases it's actually the easy part of the story. What's difficult is getting people to watch it and getting the right people to watch it. So what Green TV does is syndicate its video content to a number of different platforms where we can guarantee that you will get audiences for it.